Then when did you and your brother realize, like, no bueno, no more, you know?
So that was actually a pretty easy one, because, like I said to you, my mind had been somewhat made up from the beginning, but my family was still a bit reluctant to say, "Hey, this is too much." So they were all doing great and growing their mining operations until December 2017. December 2017 was the day
So this is 5 years running mining operations.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty
okay.
much. Like mind you, the big growth happened. Like the first year was very experimental.
Sure,
the second year, like the big growth years were, I want to say, 2016 and 2017.
Okay,
like those were years.
But roughly speaking, within the industry, 5 years, 2 years of growth. So now 2017, what happens?
So in 2016 we start. In 2016 and 2017, it was more and more people setting up machines and wanting every time more and more help setting up bigger and bigger facilities. We had at that point now become known as like the guys that would help you out, right? And so that was very rare because no one in the space was willing to help you. We were very different in that we just wanted to share. We thought this was amazing and we wanted to help people out. And so, you know, at the end of 2017, Venezuela with this whole petro effort, which we can get into in all sorts of detail because, you know, there's a perception outside of Venezuela of what the petro was, but that's not
the petro coin.
Yeah, Venezuelan petro. So the petro was essentially a big organized campaign or a way for Maduro to tell his cronies what a mining machine was, and essentially that they could go and take them and change the wallet address, and that no one would know, and essentially letting them know that they could go extort the new entrepreneurs. Right, because everyone that had an import-export business, farms, everyone had become a miner. Like there was just no private business happening outside of mining. So the government was like, okay, well, we need to keep our crooks happy. Usually they do that by sending them to industries or whatever and asking or demanding for ridiculous things. And so they'll get payouts and bribes in many ways. So they needed a company that was willing to pay out bribes, right? And like every time there's fewer and fewer because they're decimating all of them. So in the absence of any company to send them to get bribes, they said, okay, well, let's teach them what these machines are, how much they make, and where they can find them, and how they can find them. And it's quite simple, and they'll go and grab them all, right? And they'll just extort up dollars, and if not, they'll just take the machines. It's going to be beautiful. And that's actually what happened. So
you had a knock on the door?
Oh, yeah. And myself and many. Yeah, I can share lists of friends that had the same happen.
So what did it go down? Were they pretty blunt with you? It was like pay up?
Yeah, pretty basically $15K and your computers or you're going to jail. And obviously the response was like, okay, why? Like we didn't break any law. Like here's my import records. Here's all the hydro I paid. Like here's my internet bills. Like what about this is illegal? And they're like, no, but it's funny because at the time they had the backdrop of the petro, which is we're making everything legal, everyone can mine, Venezuela is going to become a tech, blah, 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 blah. But on the other side, you had, no, it's illegal, you need to pay up or else. And so it was funny because it was an interesting conversation back and forth because it was like, well, you're saying this morning you said it was legal, here's the registry, I'm offering you to give you these things, but you're telling me that it's illegal. Essentially, like, you just want my machines. So like, a lot of people that knew kind of what the levers were and you know what they could claim as their rights. Some people still were under the impression that you had those in Venezuela. You know, there's some pushback, right? Because we didn't consider ourselves criminals, right? My brother, none of us, but they were after my brother at the time. So we essentially took a very hard stance. They said, no, we're not breaking any laws. Like, we're willing to go to court if you want. Like, you know, let's do this. Let's dance because we're not like we'll win. That was actually like very rare. Most people just paid up and shut up, and they still do it today. But so in my brother's case, it upset them that we weren't just willing to write a check.
Yeah,
and they started threatening us with like, you know, they telling my brother they knew where he lived and where the kids went to school and all this stuff that cops should never be telling you, right? So my brother's like, at this point, I remember my brother was the only one.
Because these are federales.
Yeah, these are the feds.
Yeah.
So my brother was alone in Venezuela at the time. My dad was out of the country. My other brother was out. I was out. So it was scary. So he was scared. He was like, you never thought that the next thing they would say after you said, no, I want to actually like go through the due process. It was like, there is no due process. Like, you're in jail. So that was like the last thing anyone expected. So after they went like full, like, El Chapo, like Escobar, like the second we realized that these guys are just criminals.
Straight criminal thugs.
So my brother made the call to leave the country overnight. He drove to the border with him and a couple of friends that were kind enough to do a convoy. Like I said, you don't drive at night in Venezuela. So if you do, you drive with like a convoy and guns,
strapped,
fuel, and
fucking
like
be strapped
everything.
to the 9. Yeah.
So he drove on a convoy with a bunch of cash, was able to get through to Colombia. We fought the case legally from abroad. Essentially, he's now been fully pardoned. Like the case has been dismissed. Okay. He's been given a full kind of reinstatement of no laws were broken. So he's free to go in and out. He still hasn't gone back. My youngest and my dad, they still go back and forth, like in and out once in a while. But I think, to me, personally speaking, it was a bit of a blessing in disguise because my family needed to be shocked.